In this video, we are going to be exploring how to use the gradient tool located in your toolbar right where my mouse is with the arrows pointing. And up above that are the options bar for the tools as well. So when I put my mouse over a tool, you'll notice the name pop up. It says gradient tool. And if we go up to the very top, you'll see it says linear gradient. The next one says radial gradient. To the right of that is angle gradient, reflective gradient, and diamond gradient. So we're going to be exploring how to use those today, as well as we're going to learn how to use a little bit of these selection tools, which will include the rectangular marquee tool. If I press down and hold the mouse down, we will also be using the elliptical marquee tool. So we'll be using those, as well as I will show you how to create other selections. Now I want to explain, and then I'm going to set this up back to the gradient tool, and I'm going to go over here where the color picker is, and I'm going to click it back to black and white, because for this project we want to use black and white so we can see tonal changes. Now you'll notice in my layers palette, I've already pre-made my layers to save me time. So as you're going along, when you get to each new selection, each new gradient, please create a new layer for yourself. You'll notice my project in the end has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 layers. So we'll talk about that later. So let's start with the first one, which is going to be the linear gradient. And we're going to use the rectangular marquee tool. So I'm going to select a rectangular marquee tool and make a selection on my page. This makes rectangles, right? Long, wide. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the shift key. And that creates a perfect square. And I'm going to make mine roughly approximately 3 inches. You don't have to be so exact. I'm going to grab onto the gradient tool. And notice the gradient tool's up at the top in the options bar. You see it says linear gradient. Make sure that's the one you're using. Apply it to the selected area. Make sure you're on the correct layer. I am. And I'm going to run across. Now you notice it can go on different angles. I'm going to ask you to hold the shift key. That makes it go perfectly straight. And I'm going to let go. And you see a gradient. And you see it go on from black to white. I went from left to right. If I go from right to left, hold the shift key, go the other way, it'll be in reverse order. So it's starting off with the foreground color and then going to the background color, and that's how it works. If you pull it from one corner diagonally to the other, the gradient will be diagonal. If you pull the gradient a short distance, it will be a short gradient. If you pull it a long distance, well actually let me do it this way, a long distance from outside, you'll notice you get a broad gradient. And if you start it in the middle, it'll go from that point. If you start it short, so any direction you go in, it's going to go with. For this, I think I'm going to go from right to left, holding down the shift key, and I'm going to leave it there. Okay, so once we've done this gradient, we want to let go of that selection. So we'll go up to the top and hit deselect, or you can type in Command D, which is always what I prefer to do. Now, I'm going to switch my layers. I'm going to go to the one that says Radial Gradient, because that's what I'm going to work on now. Yeah, you should take a moment, pause the video, and make yourself a new layer for the Radial Gradient. So here I'm going to click on the selection tools on the toolbar, and I'm going to hold it down, the rectangular marquee, till I get to the elliptical marquee. And I'm going to take that, and of course an ellipse is an oval-like shape. I want it to be a perfect circle, so guess what key I'm going to hit? You got it, the shift key. So here we go. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to move it over a little bit. I can move it. That's one of the nice things about the selection. You can move it when you're in possession of a selection tool. So here I can move it. And now we're going to use the gradient tool again. But this time we're going to use the one to the right of the linear. We're going to use the one called the radial gradient. So I'll make that active. Notice the way our colors are set up. Black's on top, white's on the bottom. If I were to fill that here, and I'm not going to do this I'll do it from the middle, but I'll show you how it gets better. You notice I get a black dot in the center, and I get the white on the outside. If I were to reverse the colors in the color palette, so making the white be on top and the black be on the bottom, and by the way, just by clicking this, you can switch the order. So if I put the white on top and I do the same thing, look at what a nice effect you get. It starts to look like a real ball. And if I make it further out, it'll be lighter in shade. If I move the location of the starting point, for example here, it starts to look like it's a ball getting light from above. So you can change your light source in a sense, depending on how you decide. See, now it looks like the light's coming from there. So find a direction for it. And I think that's just a wonderful, fun effect. Okay, next we're going to move on to the angle gradient. So I will click on the layer that I have designated the angle gradient. I'm going to go over to select and hit deselect. And on the new layer, I'm going to make I'm not going to make a selection the way we did before. You notice on the project on the right, I have a little hard shape. So there's some custom shapes here. I'm going to click on you'll probably see it as a rectangle. Hold it down, go to custom shapes, and up above here in the tool options, you will see a variety of different custom shapes. If your box is little like this, just pull the corner open. And if you don't have as many pictures, you can look here and you can just say load them all, and you can get everything loaded into your computer. Now, I have many custom made for myself over time because you can make your own. But I'm going to pick a heart shape. I'm sure you'll have a heart shape available to you. And I'll grab one right here. I'm going to take, and if you just use the tool like this, you're going to make what's called a shape layer. We don't really want to use it that way. So once we have the shape tool and we've selected our shape, go up here in the options bar in the upper left. It's probably set to shape layers. That's standard. To the right of that, it says paths. We're not going to use that one. To the right of that, it says fill pixels. Let's use fill pixels. When I do that, I'm going to get a heart. Now you notice the heart can be all distorted. If I want it to be a perfect, like that's not a good heart, you know? If I want it to be a perfect heart, hold down the what key? That's right, the shift key, and you'll get a perfectly proportioned heart the way it's intended to be seen. Now, the reason I made that shape was because I wanted to make a selection and I didn't want to struggle too much. So by making that shape, now I can pick up the tool here known as the magic wand, and you might see the quick select on top, get the magic wand, and then click on the shape you just made, and it makes a selection for you. And now you're ready to fill it with a gradient. So it's an easy way to make a shape, then fill it with a gradient. We're going to use the angle gradient, so I'll go up to the top. On the options bar, that would be the third tool over, the third gradient over, angle gradient. Click on that, and you can experiment with it. I just took the opportunity to run straight vertically down. I hit the shift key, and it makes a gradient that goes around in a circle. Now I'm going to hit Command Z just to show you another variation. If I did it and reverse the colors, obviously what's going to happen is I'm going to get it in reverse order, like that. That's what happens if you go in top to bottom instead of, bottom to top instead of top to bottom. So experiment with it, see how it works well, see what you can do with it. That's what the angle gradient does. I happen to just think that's kind of a cute little effect. Oops, wrong way. Meant to do it this way. Great. So set that up. I think you'll enjoy exploring what the angle gradient can do. Okay, now it's time to explore the diamond gradient. So let's, you'll notice I have two layers because I'm going to put diamond gradients on two things. So we have diamond gradient, and let's deselect. I'm just going to type Command D, and I'm going to go over to my shapes, and I'm going to click on the shapes, And since I'm going to use the diamond, you can see on the right, you see what my plan is going to be. I'm going to take advantage of the shape to help make it dynamic. But you can really use any shape you'd like. You can use the diamond in any shape you'd like to accent. So we're going to use that shape tool. Remember, we're set to making just a solid shape. If you want your object to come out traditional, hold the shift key. If not, you can distort it any way you want, but I like tradition. I'm going to go with the way it's intended. I'm going to take the magic wand tool. I'm going to click on that space like we did earlier. Selected that space, now I can use the gradient tool. I'm going to make sure I click on the fifth one over. That would be the diamond gradient. And like all the other gradients, depending which way you pull, I'm going to hold the shift key. I like to make straight lines. And it goes, that's really pretty. You can take that and you can bring it really far out. Might look something like that. You can reverse your colors. Try it with your colors reversed in different ways. You can try it up and down, diagonal. You'll find something you like. Let me see. Let me try to do like what I did earlier. I'm grabbing from the center and I'm going to pull out to the corner. And that's kind of how I did that. So I took it from the center, I pulled to the corner, and that's how I got that kind of X shape in there. So play with it, see if you what you can come up with. The more experimentation, the more you're going to get out of it. And then I said I'm going to quickly do the other shape. So I'm going to hit now I have a figure of a human silhouette. You may not have a human silhouette, so I'm not going to end that way. Command D. I'm going to go over to my shapes. And this time I think I'm going to pick one of the cute little animals. Up top, I'm going to go with the bunny, with the little cat. There we go. In honor of my kitty, Rusty. And I'm going to select it. Let me move it. Let me redo it so I'm not touching the tail at the bottom. Here we go. So there we go, just like that. And now I'm going to select using the magic wand tool. We've selected the kitty. I'm going to grab the gradient tool. I'm going to grab the eye, and I'm just going to make a small little selection. And I want to rearrange the angle there. So there we go. Now nice and short. And I've given my cat the cutest little eye. The one over here, it's supposed to represent a heart. So that's how to explore the gradient tools. And I know you're probably wondering, how did I get that cool shadow over here on the right? Well, I'll show you a little quick trick. I'm going to go to the layer, which is the radial layer here, and I'm going to double click on the layer. And when I do, I get something called Layer Styles. Layer Styles, its first effect is called Drop Shadow. I click on it, and I can, once I click on it, I have to turn the check button on to make it work and blue to make it active. And I can move the distance of the shadow. I can change the direction of the shadow. Obviously, I want to go in this direction because light is coming from that source. I can increase the size of it in terms of how it fades out, how it blurs. I can increase the spread of it. So that's how you do a nice little shadow effect. Let me deselect that last kitty. And I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you experiment and do a lot of good stuff. Okay, and now we're going to do the final gradient, which we're going to use as a background. I've created a layer called Background Gradient, and it's just above the background, right? What's at my green layer. So it's right there. If you put it up above the others, which I'm going to do to show you, it's going to cover up everything. So I'm going to take the gradient tool, and I'm going to go from the top left to the lower right and make a gradient that goes across the page. You notice it covers the entire page. Whenever you use a gradient, if you don't constrain its space, it'll take over the whole page. So this is my finished product. You saw I brought the layer from the top to underneath everything. I hope you learned a lot about using gradients, and I hope you apply it. Good luck to you, and work hard.